guys, how's it going? Now sometimes in life people want to shoot other people. I don't know why, don't look at me, I don't know the answers to that, but it does happen. And sometimes it happens to famous people. Sometimes it's from crazy fans, sometimes it's because they get into some sort of fight, sometimes it's an accident, sometimes they live and sometimes they sadly die. My name is Danny Burke, this is Most Amazing Top 10, and let's have a look at the top 10 celebrities who were shot. Coming in at number 10, we have Bob Marley. Yes, even those who spend their whole lives promoting peace and harmony can end up taking a bullet. The reggae legend was rehearsing for a free concert that was aimed to promote harmony during a time of great political differences. Someone didn't see it that way, however, and seemed to think Bob Marley was taking sides. Two unidentified gunmen made their way into Bob Marley's home and shot him, his wife, and his manager. Now luckily they all went on to make full recoveries. Nobody was ever brought to justice though for this crime, but what I find even crazier is that Bob Marley went ahead and still performed at that concert just 2 days after he was shot. What a hero. Now he said, "The people who are trying to make this world worse aren't taking a day off. How can I?" So there's your daily reminder of why Bob Marley is a better human than most of us will ever be. At number 9 now, we have John Lennon. The Beatles broke up in 1970. 10 years later, in 1980, John Lennon was shot in the back 4 times outside of New York's Dakota Hotel where he was living at the time. He was rushed to hospital but was pronounced dead upon arrival. The man who killed him, Mark Chapman, was a super fan of John Lennon who thought that he was speaking to him through his song lyrics and thought that by killing him he could somehow obtain some of John Lennon's fame. Sounds a bit crazy, that's because it is. He was actually diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic and has been in prison ever since. But in a twisted kind of way, he was kind of right. If you think about it, it's been almost 40 years now since he did this and people around the world are still talking about him. Alright, coming in at number 8 now, it's Marvin Gaye, one of the most famous American soul singers of all time. Now he pretty much shaped his genre of music over the course of the 1960s and 70s. Many people out there are familiar with his songs, such as Let's Get It On or I Heard It Through the Grapevine, both great songs, but what they might not know is that he was shot and killed by his own father. I certainly didn't know that before I started making this video. On April 1st, 1984, Marvin Gaye stepped into an argument between his mother and father over an insurance policy. He ended up in a physical fight with his father where they were rolling around on the floor, punching and kicking each other. Afterwards, Marvin returned to his room and his father entered minutes later with a gun that Marvin had bought for him and shot him once through the heart. He was pronounced dead upon arrival at hospital. This was the day before his 45th birthday. Alright, moving on now. Some of the people on this list only got shot once and died, but at number 7 we've got rapper 50 Cent, who was shot multiple times and lived to tell the tale. On April 24th, 2000, 50 Cent was visiting his grandmother's home in Jamaica. He was sitting in a back seat of a car outside of the home when a vehicle pulled alongside and a gunman started firing shots at 50 Cent. He took bullets to the hand, arm, hip, cheek, and both his legs were broken by the bullets. He was rushed to hospital where he thankfully survived. Investigators said they think the hitman was hired by a rap label to assassinate 50 Cent as revenge for him rapping about their criminal activities. Instead, he lived and went on to make millions of dollars rapping about that shooting, so I guess it worked out alright in the end for him. I just hope they don't come after me for talking about him talking about them.
A guy got out the passenger seat of that car, came around behind it, and shot through the actual car.
Oh dear. At number 6 we've got Pope John Paul II. He's probably the most famous pope of all time and really was a celebrity in his own right. He didn't hold back on his opinions on a number of controversial issues and this led to many people worrying about his safety. On May 13th, 1981 he was meeting the crowds in St. Peter's Square, shaking hands with them and greeting them, but among the crowd was Mehmet Ali Acar, a Turkish gunman and a member of a militant fascist group. He fired 4 shots at the Pope as he passed by, critically wounding him. The Pope was rushed to hospital where emergency surgery saved his life and he eventually made a full recovery. The gunman was put in prison, and 2 years later the Pope actually went to visit him where they spoke privately for a while. The Pope said that he forgave him for the shooting and then stayed in touch with him for many years on. I guess it's pretty easy to see why this man made Pope. Alright, moving on now to number 5. It's the son of world famous martial artist Bruce Lee, Brandon Lee. Like his father before him, Brandon entered the world of acting and appeared in a number of movies such as The Crow that was critically acclaimed. It was while filming for this actual movie that tragedy struck. In one scene where Lee's character is shot, the production team failed to realise that a live round was still present in the gun chamber despite them loading the gun with dummy rounds. When the gun was fired, Lee was struck in the abdomen by a bullet with the same force as a real bullet. 6 hours of surgery wasn't enough to save his life. Unlike most of the shootings on this list, Brandon Lee's death was ruled as negligent but ultimately completely accidental. Alright, coming in at number 4 now, we've got a rapper who goes by more nicknames than I can even count, but you probably know him as Lil Wayne. He's another rapper that got shot, but it wasn't by some sort of drive-by and it wasn't some kind of gang dispute. He shot himself by accident when he was just 12 years old. He said that at the age of 12 he was high and playing with a loaded gun. He unloaded the clip that was inside the gun but didn't realise there was still one bullet left in the actual chamber. The gun fired when he removed the clip and the bullet went straight through his chest. An off-duty police officer rushed him to hospital where he spent the next 2 weeks on life support. Lil Wayne has actually talked quite candidly about this event in a number of different interviews where he's shown the camera the scar left from his bullet and said the incident made him realise he was put on earth for a reason. When I was 12 I accidentally missed the school bus on my first day of high school, so not quite the same. Moving on to number 3, we have arguably the most famous civil rights leader of the 1960s, Martin Luther King. He campaigned for the equal rights of African Americans despite constant death threats from those working against his progress. On April 4th, 1968, King was visiting Memphis, Tennessee to support African American city workers who were protesting over low pay and unsafe work conditions. He was on the balcony of his motel where he was staying when a single bullet was fired at him. It passed through his cheek and severed vertebrae in his spinal cord, causing massive damage along the way. An hour later, he was pronounced dead at hospital. The killer was eventually caught and imprisoned. For years, King had known that something like this would probably happen. When he saw President John F. Kennedy killed, he told his wife, "This is what is going to happen to me also. I keep telling you, this is a sick society." But he also knew that his death could not stop the change that he had helped set in motion. Coming in at number 2 now, we've got Andy Warhol. Now he was an American artist who became an absolute icon of the cultural shift that happened across the world in the 1960s. His art was as commercially successful as it was controversial, and Andy made as many friends as he did foes over the years for not really holding back or compromising when it came to his art or his views. But nobody could have foreseen what happened to him on June 3rd, 1968. On this day, Andy Warhol was shot by radical feminist Valerie Solanas. If you think I'm using the term radical lightly, she was the founding member of the Scum Society, which stood for Society for Cutting Up Men, which advocated the elimination of all men. She was the only member. But she didn't shoot Andy because he was a man. No, she shot him because he misplaced a script she had given him 2 years earlier. He luckily survived after emergency surgery and she was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and as far as I'm aware, the Scum Society no longer exists. And finally now guys, over the course of rap music's history, a lot of rappers out there have been shot, but for most people, only one name comes to mind more than others, and number 1 is Tupac. Tupac was first shot in 1994 at New York's Quad Recording Studios. He was attacked by gunmen who robbed him, shot him, and left him for dead. He did survive that attack, and years later, one of the gunmen actually came forward and admitted to the crime. Tupac survived, but just 2 years later, in 1996, another shooting occurred. On September 7th that year, he was being driven through the streets of Las Vegas after watching a big Mike Tyson fight. A car pulled up next to his at an intersection, and a gunman man began firing at Tupac through the roll down window. He was hit 4 times in the chest, arm and thigh. Tupac was rushed to hospital where he spent the next 6 days in intensive care but eventually died from internal bleeding. Now there are a number of different theories out there about who carried out the shooting, who ordered it, who did it, and there's plenty of conspiracy theories too, but nobody to this day has ever been brought to justice. Well guys, there you have it. There's our top 10 celebrities who were shot. Do you know any others that I missed? I saw quite a few other ones. If you like this and you do have some suggestions, then maybe we could do a part 2. If you'd like that, either way, get chatty down there in the comments section below. I'll be there commenting away too. My name is Danny Burke, and if you do want to follow me on Instagram, you can find it somewhere down there. Thanks as ever for watching Most Amazing Top 10, and I'll see you guys soon.